largest state public power corporation in the United States. We were formed in 1931 by FDR, governor at the time, and his focus was to give back water to the people of the state of New York, that which is theirs. The initial focus was to harness the St. Lawrence River, the outfall of the Great Lakes, and to dam it and produce power from that. That took 23 years from the formation in 1931 until they first began construction. A lot of that were disputes over shipping, international agreements, things of that nature. When we did get rolling, it really rolled. I look at what they accomplished in a 4-year period, and I'm just amazed at what we were able to do at that point in time. Were we to try to endeavor to do that today? No way. The world is largely changed, and it's really the reason why asset management is so important. What is our history with asset management? Obviously, since we've been around since essentially the late 50s, we've been managing assets since that time. As was alluded to, all this work is nothing new. It's stuff that we've been doing right along. What is new about it today is the systemic approach and the more regimented approach, more inclusive, that is there. Notable event in the 1990s, I guess we got with the 90s. We actually employed some computer technologies, including our financial system, SAP, and most notably our CMMS system, a new thing called Maximo at the time, which we have maintained and preserved since that time till today. Hinged in that effort, while we created a new department or a new responsibility called maintenance and resource management, which has morphed over the years. We also created a framework asset management department for the first time, so an office that concerned itself specifically with asset management. We rode a bow wave of activity when that was happening in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was just a huge wave that we shared with the global communities, the Maximo users group and things like that. And then once we reached the 2000s or so, there was a lull. However, we came back, coming back like a phoenix, I guess you could say. And there were a couple of things that kind of drove that to take place. It really began in about the 2010 timeframe. Some of them were unfortunate events, but led to fortunate things for us. One, the service contract that we had with our version of Maximo at that time, which was 5.2, was expiring. So that, while an unfortunate event, necessitated a change, and it was a very important element to where we would go here in the next few years. We also reconvened this MRM group that we were talking about earlier into an asset and work management committee. Lenny Caputo is the chair of that committee to this day. And we were already looking at that time at things called Pass 55. Go figure. That evolved into the ISO 55000 strategy that we employ today. This is a pretty familiar model from probably anybody that has looked into the AHEM site. This is a 6-block model. This is the excellence model which we chose to follow. We're going to talk about how this differs a little bit from 55,000 in a moment. These are the elements, the 39 elements, the subject areas which comprise this 6-block model. These represent the areas that are defined by the Global Forum as representing asset management. And we scored ourselves on our competency in each of these 39 areas. This depicts the map of our activities that we undertook. In the upper left-hand corner was an exercise to determine our as-is state. We had a series of targeted questions that were devoted to developing our maturity score in each of the areas. It was conducted by, as we'd mentioned, a third-party consulting group, although we very recently produced this on our own with our own leadership, and surprise, surprise, we got a very similar looking score out of it. The second part, the block to the bottom left, is to determine where do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up? Now you know where you are. Now what do you want to be when you grow up? And then the difference between them represents the gap, highlighted in this block to the right. The gap is closed by the Level 0 document called the Strategic Asset Management Plan, or SAMP. So this is the first document we had worked on throughout 2015. It was brought into the House at the beginning of 2016 and adopted by our governance board at that time. This is our scorecard. So I wouldn't call it a D+, but this basically represents our elements, or our competency in the 39 areas in accordance with the excellence model in asset management. And this took me a while to get a hold of, because this is a lot like my freshman physics class in college. If you got a 45, you're doing damn good. Well, we're aspiring to be at that 45, because in accordance with the model, if you can achieve that, you are likely to be compliant with the ISO 55000 standard. So it takes a while to get your arms around that. The beautiful part of this is you can apply the scoring also to the clauses of ISO 55000, which we did. So within the 71 shall statements that comprise it, and yes, somebody did count them within that document, the shall statements that you must meet, these represent our maturity scale. And again, if you can achieve 45%, chances are that you are going to be compliant. And now, as I'd mentioned, I want to talk about the significance of culture. Because if you think you've estimated the cultural impact that something like this is going to take, I would say my first thing is that you're wrong. A lot of this is related to how long you've been in existence, how deeply rooted that culture is, and also, and most importantly, how successful you've been. The IAM talks about an unfreeze moment, a reason that compels you to change the state that you're in. It could be that your business is failing, and if you don't get your act together, you're not going to be there. Power Authority didn't have that unfreeze moment. We've been largely, widely successful, been making money right along. There's been some projections. We thankfully had leadership that recognized that our industry was changing, so they could see this coming over the horizon. But that doesn't reach the bottom elements of your organization as well as it does to those people that are looking out for those sort of things. So the cultural resistance to that is strong. This is our drive for change. This represents the power grid as it exists today. The top is the traditional model with large-scale generation, large transmission, and the bottom is where it's going, distributed generation, solar, wind, microgrids, things like that that are fundamentally changing the industry that we're facing today. And if we don't react and become more agile and able to react to that more quickly and take care of our aging assets and the new technologies, the big data advent, we're going to be left behind. This depicts kind of the natural evolution of the cultural change. The first thing you meet is denial. Why are we doing this? We don't have a need to do this. We're already making money. Nobody's going to do it as well as we do. Then you get they start to see a little bit of the foundational part of this. Maybe there is something to it. So you end up transitioning somewhere between the frustration, I'm not sure we want to get into this, into the, okay, there might be something to it, let's see where it goes. And we're probably somewhere down between the frustration and the testing portion of our show at this time. But it looks like we're starting to gain a little traction. My parting comments with regard to culture. If you think you know how much time it's going to take to do your culture, double it. And then add 50 and double it again. And you may then have a fairly realistic position on how much time, effort, money it's going to take in order to do this. We've spent largely the last 3 months in trying to secure, it's a convergence, a top-down push from upper management that is behind this initiative and a bottom-up approach from the floor. Has to come together in order to push this thing further along. We've been working hard on the top-down element within the last 3 to 4 months. It's taken considerable time, considerable effort. I'm happy to report that we seem to be gaining some breakthroughs in that regard, but our next challenge is going to be in making this relatable to the guys in the field. the supervisory level, and we recognize that it's going to take them to make this program successful.